Great. We're in business. Okay, so I've put this together for you guys, really just to try and add some value to your day or your life, and hopefully you'll find the information useful. So the topic is 7 excellent sources of protein, and a lot of the information I've taken from healthline.com. This is a really great topic because often people get confused about protein sources, and sometimes they may not be sure which ones are the best. So I've pulled probably the 7 top, and obviously there are many more than this. This is not all of them. I'm just going to turn my phone off there. Okay. So just starting off a bit about protein. So it's an essential part of a balanced diet. And sometimes when people are eating more protein, they'll tend to have a lot of fat combined with that protein, and that adds a lot of calories to your meal. So ideally, if you're looking for a good protein source, sometimes it's better to have a lean protein, so you're not getting the unwanted fat, particularly if it's animal fat. So as the slide goes on to talk about, there are lean animal and plant sources of protein that will help you meet your quota. So we've talked about this before on our previous Sizzle Fitness and Weight Loss, I guess, webinars, about how much protein do you really need for optimum health? Well, they say the minimum is actually 0.8 grams per kilo of body weight, and it's better to hit at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So your individual calorie and protein needs are based on your age, weight, height, and sex and activity level. So the bigger that you are, obviously if you're a bodybuilder, you're going to need way more protein than that. If you're a taller guy, you'll need more. If you're a smaller person, you'll need less. So proteins are essential roles in building and maintaining muscle and tissues in your body. It also helps to promote fullness and is really key in managing weight. So the first one I've got here, which they're not necessarily in the order of best to worst. They're all excellent sources. The ones that just started this presentation probably have like a higher amount of protein than the others. So fish and the white fleshed fish are super lean and excellent sources of protein. These are probably the highest protein, lowest calorie foods that you could eat because they're so lean. And so as this slide points out, that 20 to 25 grams of protein and only about 85 to 130 calories in 100 grams of cooked fish. So you're getting a really good amount of protein there. 20 to 25 is a good amount. They say above 30 grams in one meal, you're not really your body won't utilize. And it's better to split your protein throughout the day. So we're talking about the different types of fish. So cod, flounder, and there's some other fish there, orange roughy, so you can read that for yourself. But these fish generally have 10 to 25% omega-3 fat. These white fish generally have only 10 to 25% omega-3 fat. It's the darker fish, so people often love eating salmon and what's another fish? Trying to think, actually. Salmon, well, that's the only one I can think of at the moment, but there is mentioned here sockeye salmon, coho. So they're dark fleshed fish, and they're a healthier type of fish in the terms of the omega-3 fats. They're much higher. And so, buying fish is really tricky. I do like to eat fish. I certainly don't like it unless it's fresh, because if it's not fresh, it kind of gets a bit smelly. And one suggestion is you can buy the fillets frozen. However, I do prefer the fresh fish, but it is an expensive food item to buy. If you ever go to your fish market and go and buy some white fish fresh, it's right up there in terms of cost, I would say. Okay, so the next one we've got here is beef and lamb. So lean cuts of beef are those with less than 10 grams of total fat. So 4.5 grams of less or saturated fat per 100 gram serving. So if you're buying fresh beef, that doesn't mean that doesn't have a nutrition label. Certain words will tell you if this type of meat is lean or not. So these include loin or round, for example, sirloin or tenderloin steaks, as well as eye round roast and round steak are all lean types of meat. You can also tell if they're lean too, because you can see the marbling. So if you see that picture there, the white speckles through the meat, that's the fat. So the more of that there is, the more fatty it is. So basically a 100-gram cooked hamburger patty with lean ground beef has around 171 calories, 6.5 grams of fat, and 26 grams of protein. So you can see that fish is a better option in terms of fat, but you know, the benefits of beef and lamb, obviously they're loaded full of minerals and vitamins, and there's lots of good nutrition there. Okay, poultry, this is probably my favorite one. I tend to favor white meat. So skinless white poultry. So 100-gram serving of cooked chicken or turkey breast has around 30 grams of protein. So we can get, it's a really lean source of protein, white chicken breast, and it's pretty high in protein. It's actually seemingly higher than the meat, the beef and lamb. The dark cuts of meat like your drumsticks and thighs, they actually have more fat. The leanest part of the meat is actually the breast. So also, if you want to keep it lean, obviously don't eat the skin because that adds extra calories to the meal. So skinless roasted chicken breast has around 165 calories and 3.5 grams of fat. So this is a great source as well. All right, protein powder. This is a fantastic option, particularly for people who just aren't getting enough protein in their diet. So you really want to consider perhaps supplementing your diet if you're not hitting those minimum requirements. And you would notice a difference, I believe, because it really does help you to maintain weight and help you maintain your muscle levels, which is really critical as we're getting older, or really at any age to be just to actually make that comment is relevant at any age. So protein powder. So while it's good to focus on whole foods, you know, supplementing can obviously be useful. So, you know, adding a shake to perhaps you could have it as a meal replacement if you're in a hurry, or adding it in between a meal just to boost up those protein levels. And so there's different types of protein powder. So the Sizzle Lean one I absolutely love because it's made from casein and whey protein. It's made from organic cow's milk. It's gone through cold filtration, so it's got lots of peptides that are still active in the milk protein that they extract. And the casein protein actually makes it quite filling. And so I just think this is just a great protein. And we've also added some 50 trace minerals in there and some good vitamins. There's no soy, it's not genetically modified, so just a fantastic shake. There are other options. Sometimes maybe people don't want a dairy one. It is actually lactose free, but it is still a dairy supplement. So you could use instead like a pea protein. You can even get beef or chicken protein shakes. I have tasted one before. It was okay, but yeah, not my favorite. So that's another great source to consider. So for instance, in the Sizzle Lean, in one serving, you've got approximately 12 grams of protein. I actually go a double scoop. And so I have 2 scoops, so I get 24 grams of protein. The other great thing about this shake is it actually got fiber in it too. Many of the whey proteins and pea proteins you buy don't have any fiber. And of course, when you start to increase your protein, if you don't accompany that with enough water and enough fiber, you could get a little bit clogged up. So you need to be mindful of that and not overdo it. Okay, Greek yogurt. So this would be a popular one for vegetarians. So a serving of Greek yogurt has about 15 to 20 grams of protein. That's in 170 gram serving, compared to only 9 grams in a serving of real yogurt. This is due to how Greek yogurt is made. It's leaving strained more, it's strained to remove the liquid whey, leaving a more concentrated product with more protein that's also thicker and creamier. If you're looking for the least calories of fat, opt for a plain non-fat Greek yogurt, which has 100 calories per 170 gram serving. So I love this, having this on some oats in the morning. I'd have some oats with some almond milk and 100 grams of Greek yogurt and a bit of banana. So I switched to that breakfast just recently and really enjoying it. So it is good to split your protein up and try and have a bit of protein at each meal. All right, so here's another great one for vegetarians, or for everyone really, vegetarians and vegans now, because we're talking about beans, peas, and lentils. So dry beans, peas, and lentils, also called pulses, are a subgroup. They have on average, they have on average 8 grams of protein per 100 grams of cooked. They're low in fat and high in fiber, and the fiber and the protein combined actually helps to fill you up. That being said, this is not as high as protein, so you can see the difference now. We're talking only 8 grams of protein per serving if a serving's half a cup. Whereas if you compare that to your chicken, you were talking 30 grams of protein. So you can see as a vegetarian, and even more so as a vegan, you really have to be mindful to hit those protein requirements, because these types of foods, whilst they have protein, are a lot lower. Okay, so the next one is eggs. So eggs contain a high quality protein, choline and vitamin B. And proteins are made up of amino acid, and eggs contain a large amount of amino acid, leucine, which is particularly important for muscle gain. It's also got some great B vitamins in there for energy production. So on average, one egg would have 77 calories, 6 grams of protein, and 5 grams of fat. If you wanted to increase the protein, what you would do is you would remove the yolk and add 2 or 3 eggs and just have the white, because the white's the actual part that has the most of the protein. So that's eggs. Okay. Now, I really wanted to touch on this today because a lot of people think that nuts are a protein source, and yes, they are, but actually they're more of a fat source than protein. And I just wanted to show this slide because if you're looking for protein sources, it's not the best source compared to some of the others we've touched on. And you can see why, because there's actually 13 grams of fat per serving compared to 4.3 grams of protein. So you've basically got, what is that, less than a third the amount of protein to fat. They're also really high in energy and calories because of the fat. And so if you eat too many, they're a great weight gainer. So yeah, just watch your nut levels, and they can cause a bit of tummy upset. They can be hard to digest. So really portion control is really key if you're going to consume nuts. Okay, so we're coming towards the end. I don't know how long. I think this is a bit shorter presentation today. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to cover on the last slide, and I've got 2 toothpaste to give away. I've actually got a heap of them, so I will be giving them away. And so I'm going to ask the question on the last slide, and if you're watching and you'd like to participate, type your answer to the question, and for those that get it right, I'll pick a number and I'll be giving away 2 of them. Okay, so fruits and vegetables, are they a source of protein? Yes or no? So if you want to comment below and you're watching, then you can have a chance to win one of these, and I'll go and post them today. They are, fruit and vegetables obviously are packed full of vitamins and minerals. They've got a great amount of fiber and they're low calorie. The question are, would you consider them a protein source? So I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was saying she's having trouble losing weight. And I said, well, what are you eating? She says, oh, well, I'm having fruit for breakfast and a salad for lunch and, a piece of fish or something for dinner. And I said, well, how much protein are you having? And she said, oh, yeah, well, I'm getting plenty of protein from my spinach. And I said, yeah, the question is, so I'm coming back to you, is fruits and vegetables a good protein source? Would that help her hit the protein requirements for the day, being that you're trying to achieve 0.8 to at least 1.2 grams of protein per day? So if you think you know the answer, go ahead and comment, and I'll pick a couple of winners. Anyway, so I'll go on and answer the question. So the answer to the question was no, not really, no. If you look at the protein content of, say, lettuce, it's 0. So they're not your sources of protein. You really need to go back to animal sources like your dairy or meat. And if you're vegetarian or vegan, your pulses and legumes, you could have tofu. Cheese is also another good source, but cheese is very high in fat. So you want to go for like your cottage cheese, perhaps a low-fat version, because the lower fat versions have higher protein, although they do say it's not great to pull all the fat out of things. However, if we're talking about protein, it is a higher source of protein and will help you keep the calories down. And that would be really good for somebody who's a vegetarian. Obviously, a vegan's not going to be able to eat that. So they would go for different options, more of the legumes and pulses, nuts, and they would probably be a good idea to have some sort of protein supplement as well, a pea protein or a rice protein. So that concludes today's presentation. It's a bit shorter than normal, but hopefully that just gives you some like nuggets of information to help you think about what you're consuming in a day. The other thing I would recommend, if you're uncertain about how much protein something's got that you're eating, go ahead and jump on Google and type the name of that food and go protein of, you know, a banana or protein of steak. And it will bring up a little box on the right side. It'll give you a full nutritional breakdown and it'll tell you the number of calories and how many grams of protein. So that way you could actually go through and do a protein check and see how much you're having. Just to give you another example, and I think I've told this story before, but my ex-partner was a bodybuilder. And when I was younger, I decided that we would both go vegetarian. And so he used to eat a lot of protein, meat and chicken, steak. So went completely to the legumes. And within about, I think it was 2 months, he'd lost about 10 kilos of muscle. And the reason is because if we go back to the previous slide, I'm just going to go back here. Look at that, 0.5 gram of cooked lentils or beans on average has only 8 grams of protein. So compare that to what he was eating, chicken, steak, protein shakes. You could see how his protein levels would have dropped significantly because you just couldn't eat the volume of beans and lentils without being on the toilet the whole time to hit the same protein levels. And given that he was into bodybuilding and he had a higher muscle mass than the average, to maintain more muscle than normal requires more effort, more protein, more weight resistance exercise. So for him, that was a bit of a disaster. And it was a lesson that I learned quite early, that really those proteins aren't equal in terms of the volume of food you would need to consume to hit those same levels. So I just wanted to share that. Hopefully you find that interesting, and, you know, do your own research. If you're uncertain about something, jump online, do some research, you know, and see what you can find. And, you know, it'll just, the more educated you are about your food choices, I just think the healthier options you're going to be able to make. So hopefully you enjoyed the presentation today, and we'll see you next week, and have a great weekend. And I'm going to leave it there. So thank you for joining us. Bye.